my biggest fear with working with André before we worked together is I knew André by reputation. Of course, we all do. I knew him as a customer, and there was a certain persona. I thought, okay, if he's really like that, I really like this guy. But I've worked with far too many people over the years, names that I'm sure your audience knows, where the person on the stage and the person behind the scenes, not the same person. And that was a huge fear. And it was the greatest thing in the world. Like, the biggest relief was when we started to actually work on a project together, and I realized, okay, this guy is exactly who I thought he was from his public persona. And later, to deconstruct the wisdom of that, it was like, well, of course, it's so much easier if we both just show up as ourselves. If you like what we're doing, you're never going to have a bad surprise, because there's no thing that's different later.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fear.
All right, André, Shawn, we're live. How you guys doing today?
Great, man. Thanks.
Cool. Top of the world.
Yeah, well, I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. You know, like we were talking about, we followed you, André, for a long time, and I know, Matt, you guys met a long time ago, and I think we were actually recently. It was George Bryant. Basically, he was like, "You guys got to have André on again," and because I think you interviewed André years and years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
We've been really reworking all of our email systems based off of a lot of the principles that you have put out there. And now, Shawn, you're partnered up with André, and it seems like this perfect duo. You got the traffic and this whole different perspective there, but the way that you guys bring it together, I'm so fascinated in the perspective, like the way that you actually do marketing and think about marketing. I think that's going to be fascinating in this conversation, probably some storytelling and how that applies to the whole, lot there, the spectrum of everything here. So I guess to start, I think it'd be fascinating to get kind of the background of both of you combined more than individually, and how you guys came together, because you guys have been doing this separately for many years. But what's the story of combining forces here?
Yeah, if we tell that story, we're going to have to tell the truth to get it right. So there was this time, it was a bar in Colombia, and there was a tiger. Maybe we'll just tell the real story.
Oh, man. Who's going to go?
Andre's going to go. He's the storyteller.
No pressure then. Shawn was a customer of mine. That's I think how we entered into my sphere of influence, and from there, we just, because our interests overlap so much, and we didn't realize this from the outset, obviously, because Shawn was he was a customer, he was consuming. I think he bought All This Wonder Madness and Sphere of Influence, and I had spun up this community called the 1% Club. And Shawn was inside there, and I think that's how the whole love affair started. Just bit by bit over the course of 2 years, I think, or 3 years. It was gradual, and then at some point we got a mutual client, and I think that was the first time that Shawn and I started to work together, like physically, actually work together, and that was an amazing experience in terms of what we learned about each other and what we do and what came out of that. So there was this emergence of thought and ideas that came as a result of the collaboration, and I think that's where everything kind of struck it for us.
Nice. Well, I'm curious, what sort of like roles do each of you play? So for instance, in our business, I'm kind of more the tech guy behind the scenes, building ads and landing pages and that kind of stuff. Joe's more the networker, talker, speaker, goes out on stages a lot, does the podcast, all that kind of stuff. So he's more outward facing. I'm more inward, kind of building stuff. I'm curious how your dynamic works.
I think we've
never thought about that. Right. Who does the work around here anyway? Someone's got to do something.
Well, both of us we're writers, so that's our love, and so neither one of us can do all the writing because it's unfair on the other one. But the thing that we really learned was that when our writing came together, what came out of that, that thing that we create. is different and better than both of us put together. So I think that was the moment where we thought that, this is kind of an interesting thing to explore, and that's how the whole journey started about a year ago.
And it kind of seems like with you guys together, you have this, so like emergent marketing is something you guys have been talking about a lot. So I want you guys it'd be cool to have you guys kind of define it, but it seems like the components underneath that, like the three phases, awareness, engagement, and then conversion, it's kind of wrapped up with both your guys' superpowers, with the storytelling, the writing from both of your sides, but then, Shawn on the traffic side, which is really that awareness factor. Do you want to break that down and maybe individually kind of talk about the pieces, maybe those three components, and then we can kind of splinter off into some other pieces there?
Yeah, I'll jump in that one and give Andre time to think about saying something smarter. The thing that's interesting about the collaboration, so to answer the roles question and this question simultaneously, is that we both like to think about this stuff really deeply. And we've got 40 plus years, 45, 48 years together, combined doing this work. But we're at that stage now where we like to think about it really, really deeply. And what ends up happening is it's like improv. One of us has a thought and we'll share it, and the other one just naturally is trying to see what's right in that thought and then add a little something to it. And then it builds and it builds, and it goes from like this simplicity to something that becomes really complex. And in a sense, we in a moment we sense the complexity, and then we try to reverse it. We're like, okay, we've gone from the simple to the complex, but now we got to go from the complex back to the simple so that we can share it with our audience, right? And it's, my favorite quote is, it's Oliver Wendell Holmes, said, I wouldn't give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity, but I'd give my right arm for the simplicity on the far side of complexity. So a lot of what we're doing is we're starting with something simple, like this, emergent marketing really started with some pretty simple stuff. Then we make it really just complicated, and it's just a mess. And the thinking then is, okay, what are the kernels of truth in this? What could we share with our audience that's timeless, that they could, rather than give them a fish, we could teach them how to fish with this so that they could understand a principle that will serve them well. And it's just that what our audience sees is us doing that every single day. That's just what we're doing constantly, is complicating, simplifying, complicating, and then sharing. And we figured this out the other day. We created, I think, 115,000 words of free content last year. That's just us thinking out loud. Like it's emails, it's free courses. That's what we're doing all the time. And then the courses become polished expressions of certain ideas. And really what you described, emergent marketing is a set of principles, as are the three parts of a business: awareness, engagement, and conversion. All of that came from going through enormous amounts of thought to realize that was the irreducible, what lies underneath, that somebody could hear that and say, okay, I understand this differently now. So yeah, long answer to a short question. That's the fun we have every day.
Well, it makes a lot of sense why you guys are partners then, because that's how Matt and I, well, we don't always go from complex back to simple, in that whole like progression, but we will if we have to go on stage somewhere and present our ideas. Yeah, it forces us at that point. But the fact that you can kind of ping pong back between each other, it seems like you have a similar brain, but maybe specialties in different ways. Break down those three layers of emergent marketing a little bit further, like each of those, just to kind of set the scene, because I think it was very important seeming, right when I was digging into all the content. So kind of like what awareness is.
So really everything that we do is the foundation systems theory. And the thing that I bought into, I've been two decades in this game, running an agency. And the thing I bought into earlier in my career was that optimization was a linear process, right? So you send traffic to a landing page and you get some result. You get a certain click-through rate. You get something happens. That's awareness. People don't know you exist. Now they do. So they click on something and they go there. And let's say that your click-through rate on your ad is 10%. You think, okay, well, I can make everything better if I go from 10% to 12%. That's linear thinking. And you make your funnel and you make your steps and you do the math. And, and I think if it's you double, the math gets really wonky. And if you double improvements through a 4-part process, you 16x your outcome. And I bought into it, and it's a lie. It's not true. The world does not work that way. It should, it looks like it should, but the world actually is a complicated system. And what André and I independently stumbled on and now reinforce with each other all the time is that there are forces collaborating with each other in different ways. And those 3 forces, and they all influence each other, and none of them is sufficient on its own. So if you can imagine a business that's only awareness, right? So you get tons of traffic and that's it, no business, right? So if I said to you tomorrow, do you want 1 million visitors to your site? And you say, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, well, here's the caveat. You can't opt in, you can't generate leads, and you can't sell anything. You still want 1 million visitors. You say, well, why would I care? Right. So the second part is engagement. Engagement is when your audience takes a step closer to you too. It doesn't have to be opting in, but that's really what we think about. The primary thing is that somebody raises their hand and says, this thing I've found that I've now been made aware of is interesting enough that I'm willing to take a step toward it. And sometimes, there are ways to do that where it's something bright and shiny. Here's the PDF ebook, here's the whatever it is, here's the free video series. We've all seen it, but that's engagement. And engagement can just be the sharing of attention. Someone can read your 15,000 word article. That's engagement, right? They're giving their time. And then conversion is that moment where they become an actual paying customer. We have a philosophy, a principle that we work on where we make customers before money changes hands. So we kind of violate our own rules a little bit, but that's not really that important. But if you pull any of those things out, you don't have a business. It doesn't work. It only works when all 3 are present, and the thing that emerges as a result, the texture of those 3 things. None of them makes the business. It's how they relate. So if you have a really cheesy curiosity-based headline ad that's clickbait, and you send some people to a 15,000 word multi-page pre-sale site, it's not congruent. That gets really weird. But when you start thinking about how do they all relate together, so maybe you have a long form Facebook ad that's the first page of a multi-page pre-sale site that goes into a soap opera sequence email. Now there's this emergent property. That's where emergent marketing came from. Emergent things happen that no single part of the system creates. What creates them is all of the parts of the system working together. So we have that systems view instead of that reductionist linear view. And that just mainly because it matches our experience of what we've seen over the last 20 plus years. All right, André, say something smarter now.
Yeah. So what's happened as a result of that is that series has become our soap opera sequence. So every single prospect that comes into our world now has to go through the sequence of emails that unpacks that idea of the world through our lens and how we believe business should be done. So at the end of that, either someone's going to be pulled towards us. It's like, oh yes, I want more of this stuff. That all resonates with me. Or they're going to think, yeah, these 2 guys are just fucking mad. So
we can swear.
They're going to leave.
Say whatever the hell you want.
Oh, sweet. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, André.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, that you said, because it's true that things are typically done in a linear fashion, but it's just like what you were saying. You go start with something simple, then make it complex, and then you simplify it again. It seems like folks mainly just understand the simple and maybe not the complexities and all these components that are actually involved in marketing, whereas you guys have thought deep on that and kind of said, no, it's actually this bundle of a lot of stuff happening here. But it's just been simplified. Maybe that's where the linear thinking kind of comes from in a lot of senses with the funnels and, all the steps that we see out there.
Yeah.
I think something that André, go ahead, André.
No, you first.
I think something that we do intuitively that I think helps is that one of the questions we're subconsciously asking ourselves all the time when we get new information is like, what are the implications of this new information, and going to the second, third, fourth, fifth order consequences of it. So probably the best example I can share, which I think we share in the 5-part Emergent Marketing series, is last 2019, I was at Copy Chief Live. We were at the Speakers Dinner, and I got to sit next to Dean Jackson, which is just a treat. Dean's just a genius. And Dean was really kind of going into depth about something he shared publicly in other places, which is that when he's analyzed his clients' sales performance, one of the things that he discovered is 80% of the sales happen after 90 days. So if you can imagine, we get on day one 1,000 people opt in. Of the people who become customers after that initial engagement, according to Dean's research, 80% of them become customers after 90 days. So we can hear something like that. Oh, wow, that's interesting. But it could be, what we love to call TBU, true but useless, right? Mm-hmm. But when we start thinking about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. If that's true, how would we change our approach to things knowing that? And the reality is you have 4 times the value in your list after 90 days than you do in the first 90 days. So why in the world would you try to sell everybody in the first 90 days? You wouldn't do it. You would immediately, the first implication of Dean's research in that point is realizing that marketing is a long game. Most people buy between months 4 and 18. Once you know that, you go, okay, well, you re-engineer your thinking for the long game. You're not thinking about how can I get the most sales in the first 90 days. You're thinking, how can I get the most sales, period? And most of them will happen later. And that's a lot of what we're doing is we're looking at something and we're asking ourselves, what are the implications of this? If it's true, what does it mean? And that just leads us down so many rabbit holes. And that's where all the complexity forms. And then we pop up periodically and think, okay, now there's something there. We're pulling on a thread, and then we figure out what that thread is, and we put some words around it. And as a writing coach we work with likes to say, we put words in front of periods, and off we go. Right? That's really what we do. Words in front of periods.
Yeah, and then one of the other nuances that we do is we love to learn in public. So we always taking something simple, making it complex, and then trying to make sense of it. And then once we feel that we've made enough sense of it, we'll then write an email, send it out to everybody and say, what do you think? And, that creates this interesting dynamic where we're always sharing our best thinking with them. And then as a result of that, down the line, stuff happens. So we're always doing this with the audience. So they're always part of this journey with us. So we've had we have long, customers that have been with us for over a decade, and some of them have been on this journey like the whole time. And it really has an impact. But then they'll get insights. So they'll have this emergent insight, and they'll share it with us. And then it's like, didn't think of that, but yeah, that's cool. And then that'll be reintegrated into our thinking.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, and it's creating super fans at the end of the day. It seems like, if they're hanging around with you for a decade, they're not the type that are going to be, who are these two guys send me emails every day or all the time and unsubscribe. It's like, no, you're actually taking them on this journey along the whole path. And it seems like they're coming in probably at the right time, or you have all this content that allows people to kind of make a decision. And like you said, kind of become a customer before, or make a conversion before actually exchanging money, it seems like, in a lot of cases.
It makes everything easier because you're not trying to figure out, if you try to have content that's free content, quote unquote, and then you have your paid content, and then you're trying to always figure out what do you give people for free? It's so much extra thinking. So we just, when we're creating things, we're just creating at the highest level of quality we can around a certain question. So earlier last year in February of 2020, we each did simultaneous. We like to create forcing mechanisms for ourselves. So we said, okay, starting next week, we're going to do a 10-part free series. André did email, I did paid traffic every day for 10 days. And this was like Thursday when he threw it out. He was like, hey, you want to do this? And I was like, sure. He's like, okay, Monday. I'm like, wait a minute. But we do that. But when we're writing it, we're not thinking to ourselves like, we'll do this. And then this is incomplete enough that they'll need to buy the course. There was no course at that point. It was, if I have 10 days, how can I share as much actionable knowledge without getting in the weeds, but how could I give somebody enough that they could get a result, shift their understanding, knowing that if we do that later, there will be some consequence that we can't even predict. And it happened. We had people posting in the comments, or people would send us an email and say, I just bought the traffic engine because I went through your free training and I, added $50,000 to, my business from just these 3 or 4 things. So after that, I wanted to buy the course, and it was like, excellent, because that's what it was for. You really should. And we turn away. It's shocking how many people will come in and will be ready. You can tell they're ready to buy. And it's like, no, you go do the free thing first. And if you mean it, if someone looks at this as a tactic, it'll fail. But when you mean it, and it's just an expression of how you're working, it works because people sense that it's genuine. And that's really the reason. My biggest fear with working with André before we worked together is I knew André by reputation. Of course, we all do. I knew him as a customer, and there was a certain persona. I thought, okay, if he's really like that, I really like this guy. But I've worked with far too many people over the years, names that I'm sure your audience knows, where the person behind the scenes isn't the person who's the person on the stage, and the person behind the scenes, not the same person. And that was a huge fear. And it was the greatest thing in the world. Like, the biggest relief was when we started to actually work on a project together. And I realized, okay, this guy is exactly who I thought he was from his public persona. And later, to deconstruct the wisdom of that, it was like, well, of course, it's so much easier if we both just show up as ourselves. If you like what we're doing, you're never going to have a bad surprise, because there's no thing that's different later, right? We don't have a mastermind, but you don't come to the mega mastermind and find out, oh, they're jerks. It's like, no, if you like what we're doing public facing, you're going to like what we're doing behind in the courses and other things, because it's the same.
I love that. Everything starts with a question, it seems like. And then André, the challenge of like, hey, like, let's go do this 10-day thing next week. Let's go. And it seems like it just creates enough excitement. Obviously, new ideas are given to your audience, and you never know what's going to come up, but obviously you're going to get feedback. So it's probably going to turn into some type of way that you can continue giving the right kind of value. Is that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What's the process look like there? Yeah.
Well, sometimes we have to trick ourselves to actually do work like that, because we love to collaborate on ideas, and then we love to see what comes as a result of that. So, and deadlines work. So we have to create these self-imposed deadlines sometimes, and then we surprise our audiences with, hey, we've created this thing for you because we thought it was a cool idea. But yeah, that process was just because Shawn and I were writing different courses. The only rules was, each day we need to create this body of, this lesson over a 10-part series, and every single day Shawn needs to give me his lesson, I'll take my lesson and publish it live. So there was that, we were publishing it live, emailing our audience to say, there's the next one. So we had to show up and we had to do the work, even if it wasn't perfect, or if it wasn't quite, as it would be if we could spend an extra week on a lesson. So yeah, we just did that, and it turned out all right. And that's our collaboration when we're working on stuff jointly is slightly different. One of us will we'll both have ideas. So we'll jump on a call, just riff about ideas, create some broad structure, and then one of us will take the lead and write that first thing, the first expression of what we think this thing can turn into, or this lesson, and then the next, and then they'll email. So Shawn will stick it into Ulysses, of which I can see, and then when I wake up in the morning, I'll see what he's written, and then I'll jump in and add my contribution to that, or vice versa. And that just seems to be the process that works really well for us, because at the end of a week, or however long it takes for this back and forth to happen for a certain body of work, it's just that end thing that we end up with. We could never have predicted that. That's what we're going to generate, and it's difficult to unpack that really without actually doing it, and just experiencing what that's like. Because I've worked since 2003 up until when Shawn and I started working together, which was a year ago. I was always working solo, so there was no collaboration. That was me. So it's easy to procrastinate, and it's easy to just create a certain idea and then create an expression of that, put it out there. But there's a piece missing, which we didn't realize until we started to work together. And so we feel that the work that we're creating now is just so much better.
How do you guys decide like what sort of rabbit hole, what sort of topic you want to start to dive down next? Because I'm on your list, and you guys talk about a lot of different topics. One of my favorite topics that you guys talk about from time to time is the knowledge management topic. The whole smart notes and stuff like that. And there's some varying topics that you'll discuss out to your list. So I'm curious, how do you pick which rabbit hole you want to go down next?
That's a good question. How do we do that? We had something that happened recently that's probably a good example of it. So there's, again, it's emergent. I want to keep using the same word, but we had a Black Friday promotion for a course that for some reason, I don't know how this happened, but I heard something earlier. I thought we were approaching it entirely differently than André did. So I was coming in, and there was sort of this weird friction in there, because I was like I thought we were coming at it from a certain so the perspective in the original course that André had created was based on if he only had $1,000 left in the bank and had to start over with no list, no anything, what would he do? And then we were going to do an update to that course, and I thought we were taking that same perspective, and he was way farther along than that. He wanted it to be something way better and different. So when the conversation happened, there was no, there wasn't something that we came into the conversation saying we're going to do this, but at some point in the conversation, I don't know which one of us blurted out that, well, what people really want to do is to be able to make $100,000. Like that just got blurted out. And then there's that pause where you're like, well, wait a second. What if this was how to go from $0 to $100,000? Now, and then we could feel it. We're like, oh, that's actually it. That's what people want, to be able to go from they have a job to they have this idea and they have enough money to have the lights on, pay the mortgage, put some food in their mouth, and let's just arbitrarily call that $100,000. Like, okay, neither one of us came into that conversation thinking about that. And then it was just over and over, all these kinds of things happened. We were coming at it from how we would do that. And Andre's a visual thinker, and he had put it in my note, and it was circular. And as I was looking at it, I was like, son of a bitch, that's a flywheel. And like each step leads to the next. And then so much emerged from that. It was all there, but it wasn't named. And that seems to be, that's a lot of what we do, is that because we both consume a tremendous amount of information and we're interested in stuff. We're always curious about stuff. So it gets back to improv again. Someone will say, hey, did you hear such and such podcast? I'm like, oh yeah, I like the part about X. Yeah, that reminded me of this. Oh, that's really interesting. What if we took that and applied it to and the next thing you know, we've got a 10,000 email series or 10,000 word email series, because we just unpacked that idea because it was fascinating. Like, this is really fascinating. Let's run with it. That's the truth of how it happened. We should come up with something that describes it way more elegantly. And that's funny. That's something that we do, I think, is different. I was thinking about prior to this call, what are some real differences? But this is a subtle difference most people I don't know pick up on this, including people who teach, which is the difference between descriptive and prescriptive. Most courses are prescriptive, like, hey, do this, do it in this order, like whatever. And then you go see how the people actually do their work, and it looks nothing like that at all. So we try to balance descriptive, like this is what we actually do, this is what it looks like, with prescriptive, which is knowing this is what we do. If we have a little distance and perspective, we would probably make it look a little better and it would look more like this. But the combination of those two things, some people just like to know what you do and they want to do that. And others want you to, like, I don't care what you do, just tell me what I should do. Different. So I think we find something between those two things that makes sense for us, and just, damn, we're curious about stuff.
Yeah, we're kind of lucky that our audience is attracted to the things that light us both up. So, you know, and it's also because we get to pick who we want as customers, you know, based on how we show up in the world. Well, both of us show up in a certain way, and it's very specific, and we have a certain worldview, and all of that is on the website. I mean, there's no secrets. So that's either going to pull people in or it's going to send them away. So we get to talk about PKMs and personal knowledge management because it's something that matters to us, and it's what we use to take all of our crazy ideas and put them in a place that makes it easier to make sense of. So then, yeah, we just talk about that, and then some people like it, and you know, that's great.
I think it's really cool because I feel like that what you described, Shawn, is what Matt and I do all the time. You know, it's like, oh, I just learned this new thing or this concept, and it's like, what if we did this? You know, it's like you kind of just take it a little step further, and our content comes out in the form of a podcast like this. So we get a lot of input from guys like you. And then we always have this banter section at the end of it. That's like another 20 minutes of matches, pretty much doing what you just said.
We literally figured out what our business is through the course of podcasting. We do a once a month episode called Therapy Session, where we don't have guests. It's just me and Joe talking. And like most of our business ideas actually come out in like while we're chatting live on the podcast. Yeah. So,
and it takes people along with our journey, along with the guests that we have. And it's similar to what you guys have, is you're always relating these concepts or other people and, you know, courses you might have, solutions. So it's really cool how it's all tied together, and it's this journey that we're taking folks on. And I'm kind of curious about like the storytelling side of things. I know, Matt, you wanted to get through that, and you guys are both writers. Is there a different way that you guys approach how you tie all this together as a story and a journey? Or are you guys following along pretty much the same concepts together?
Yeah, this. I can't wait to hear your answer to this. This is a fascinating question. This is how we learn about each other as we do podcasts. And really, that's what's been going on. Huh?
Well, I mean, both of us love to write, and writing is our primary means of communicating with the world and our audience, and specifically me, because I feel very uncomfortable doing video and audio. Shawn's more comfortable with that. So it's just, I had set up my stall early on that I'm only going to use email and the written word. So yeah, I think it's a lot easier to write an email that's kind of like a story, just telling a story to somebody else that happens to be an audience of thousands of people. So I think that's how the whole idea started, and it just kind of evolved from that. It wasn't anything, you know, like premeditated. So because story matters and it's so important to the work we do, both of us have story coaches now, so we can at least understand what we're doing at a more granular level, because it's really easy to just do something but not quite know why you do a certain thing. It's just, and if somebody asks you, it's like, yeah, shit, I don't know, I just do it. So there was a lot of that in the beginning. There's no particular framework that we follow to create stories, because, you know, all we're doing is we talking about the business stuff and the marketing stuff that we do. So I don't know if you have any specific questions that we can maybe unpack.
Well, so here's some a little more context for you guys. So when we were preparing for this interview today, we went and read your end of 2020 email, right? You guys sent an email right at the very end of 2020. We read that email, and then we proceeded to click into every single link in that email and then read like every article in all the email series. And it's just so damn engaging, right? Like we got
like mind map followed later.
Yeah, we just got like sucked into all of the emails and the various stories you guys were telling. And I think we're kind of curious to try to dissect that a little bit more. Like, what makes the stuff that you guys put out so engaging? Where the emails I get from you, when I get them, they're one of my like non-negotiables. I'm going to open this email. Like, don't even read the subject line. When I see the from line, I open those emails, right? So I'm curious, what do you guys think is different about that than almost like everybody else who's doing email?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. You go first. Yeah. I got a couple of things I'll think about.
Okay, Shawn can do the good stuff. I was just going to say that.
No pressure. Thanks, Andre.
You know, it's probably less sexy than you think or than you want to believe. So many times it's just Shawn and I just want to share stuff, and it's expressed in a certain way that when you deconstruct it later on. It's something that we don't do. So we're approaching it from a different angle, and we're not trying to figure out what is this thing that we want to create other than, at the end of 2020, it's, let's share links to all the most valuable stuff. That was more specific. But even then, it's like, we weren't quite sure what was going to, come from that. We were just going to share all the things and point to different places. And when you do that, and and we do that every single day, and we're putting stuff onto the website, but we don't always tell people where something is, and we don't necessarily put it into the menu system so it's easy to find. We like to make certain pieces of information not hard to find, but when people find it, they have an experience. So we purposefully create these rabbit holes that email basically pointed to different places that people can find stuff, but you can't go to the website and see like a nice big list of things to read. So that probably didn't answer your question specifically. So hopefully Shawn's going to have something.
Like I said, no pressure. Thanks, Andre. I think there are three ways I'd answer that question. First, Michael Pollan, the author, Michael Pollan, did an interview with Tim Ferriss, and he talked about when he writes books, he doesn't try to write a book from the perspective of, I'm an authority on X and let me tell you, the reader, what you need to know. What he does instead is he goes on a journey that interests him and then tells his audience about the journey. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's very similar, but it's not at all. So a lot of what we're doing is what Michael Pollan is doing, which is we're on a journey, and then we are stopping at certain inflection points, like end of the year or whatever, and saying, okay, like what has happened lately that's been interesting? And then that pairs with the second question, which is we use all the time, which is really trying to understand. It's the who cares question, and so often we'll have an idea I'll be working on a draft of an email, and there'll be some friction. It's not quite there. It feels like a knife fight. And I'll ask myself, I'm like, who cares? And then and it's a weird dialogue with myself where I'll answer that question and I'll ask it again. Well, who cares about that? And you smash up against that question. And finally, I'm like, pissed, which is it's hysterical because I'm pissed at myself, but I'm like pissed and I blurt something out or write it with a pencil or something like, and I'll write something like almost in anger, like it's because, and then I write a sentence. And I'm like, that's the thing that I've been looking for. And then I just go back to the beginning, or we go back to the beginning, and we start there because we've figured out that second most important thing, which is, why is this important or valuable to our audience? Like with crystal clarity, like what is the value that we can create here? That's so important. And I think the third thing we do, which is my favorite, and I almost don't want to say this publicly, but I'm going to do it.
It's a secret.
This is a secret thing.
We'll cut this part, right?
Yeah, we'll edit
this out.
Okay.
We often will, when we are explaining something, we're doing the thing that we're explaining as we do it. And some percentage of people get it. And it's the craziest aha moment. Like we did an email, I can't remember when it was. I think it was the fall enrollment, but it was an email about storytelling. And the whole email is about how you can find ideas to create stories with examples of them. But the email it's 10 examples of us doing the thing that we're talking about. So when you're reading it, you're getting the experience of reading it and learning it, but it's actually happening to you at the same time. And at some point, someone gets that, and it's not a like, oh, that's interesting. It's an oh shit moment where someone gets that realization when they push back and they're like, wait a minute, they're like, like I just experienced it. There are a couple of if you want to reverse engineer, if you want to have your audience actually reverse engineer what it feels viscerally, there are two ways they can do it that are really good. One is it's a TED video. I don't remember the name of it, but the guy, it's like 7 minutes or 6 minutes. But the guy is an illustrator, and the video is about finding the face of Leonardo da Vinci. So that is a big perfect example of how to reverse engineer an aha moment, because what he does is he goes through and says, okay, we don't have any known paintings of Leonardo da Vinci, so how would we find them? And then he says, well, or self-portraits, right? So he said, here are all the portraits. And then first thing we can do is remove the women, and then you do it. But he goes through this process, and then at the end, he comes down to, and he points to and they've winnowed it down to 3. They look at the chronological order, and he points to the screen and he says, I give you the master himself, Leonardo da Vinci. And you're like, oh, you can feel it in your gut. You're like, oh my, like it all came together. And another one which others I don't want to give away the punchline, but there's a Graham Norton interview with, it's like 7 minutes, 8 minutes, Graham Norton and Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner tells the story about one of his friends who was a writer. And when the punchline of that happens, you'll stand up. And if you appreciate writing, if you appreciate a good story, you'll come right out of your chair, because it's that. And that's what we're trying to often engineer, is when someone has a moment where they just go, shit, like that, like it grabs them. We obviously don't do that every time. But that's what we're aiming for. And because we're always aiming for that, even when we miss, we tend to miss pretty big though. Like we're like, we didn't quite get there, but we still, we got a triple. We didn't knock it out of the park, but we're on third base.
So are there scenarios where you're like mid email sequence, but you don't even know how the email sequence is going to end yet? You're kind of still in the middle of it, or do the emails every single time?
Don't tell everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I love this story about someone commented for the traffic engine. Actually, it was really interesting. Somebody commented for the original version of the traffic engine, the original launch, and said like, just kind of deconstructed, like, it's so amazing what you've been doing. I'm ready to buy and all this. And she was trying to figure out, and she had thought she had figured out like what we had done. And sometimes I remember, André, you got a video from somebody, or an email with like this long video explaining to us what they thought we had done to create this experience. And it's also, I always feel kind of bad going back to them being like, we just wrote it organically one day ahead. Like we kind of had a theme.
All the magic just dispersed.
Yeah, it's like everything that you thought, but we come in with a theme. We come in with some guiding principles that it needs to be independently valuable. Like if somebody goes through the emails and never buys a single thing, that we're leaving them far better off than we found them in exchange for their attention, and attention is precious. So we treat their attention as being precious, that it's an honor. We don't just say it's an honor to have had your attention. We mean it. Like we know we have thousands of people reading this, and that's collectively, that's incredible. So we treat it with such profound respect that we make our decisions around that, and not to persuade. I mean, we do crazy stuff. We give stuff away on the last day of our enrollments to prevent people from buying who shouldn't. Like we do insane stuff. But it's all in service to that larger idea that we're optimizing for happy customers. And happy customers, you don't have to be a happy customer tomorrow. that's good. Yeah, you can come buy something 2 years from now, but between now and then, you're in the tribe. We're going to treat you like we're going to treat our best friends, genuinely. And if you buy something later, great. If you don't, I hope we left you better off than when you came in. And that's who we are. That's who we want to be professionally.
Yeah, there's two breeds of writers. I don't know if you've heard of the term pantser. So you get plotters and pantsers. Plotters are somebody like Liz Gilbert, J.K. Rowling, where they will map out their entire book or the entire series like in huge amount of detail. So they know exactly what's going to happen next, and then all they need to do at some point is then just write it. Then there's people like Stephen King and Don Winslow, and there's many world-class authors, and it's like, I don't know. It's just all I need is one sentence or one idea, and then they'll just start to write, and that story emerges for them just like it does for a reader that's reading the book. It's almost the same. So Shawn and I find that we can plan certain things loosely, but we can't go very, very detailed. Like we can't go down to the little tiny bits and pieces. That's just not how we're wired. So we found that if we throw ourselves into these weird places where we just have to show up and write and just create something, and what comes out of that in that moment, each time that we then publish it, is just, it's new. It's something that we hadn't necessarily planned for, other than having a certain idea. And those ideas for us many times come from morning pages. Shawn's been journaling morning pages for many years, and I've done so more recently. But many times I'll take photos of my morning pages and stick it at the base camp just to share insights I've had, and then Shawn will just buzz me on WhatsApp. Oh, excuse me, that's my printer kicking into action. He'll buzz me on a WhatsApp about like some crazy idea that he had on page 3 of his morning pages, and then we'll just run with these ideas. And they later, sometimes they turn into emails, or turn into courses, or turn into elements of a course. Can't always plan for it.
Yeah, no, this is fascinating, because it seems like you, just like the way you guys collaborate normally, is you start with something simple, a concept, and it gets complex, and then it gets simple. And it seems like that's maybe the writing process as well. You start with a simple concept, and internally maybe it's a little bit more complex because you're working it out. You're passing it through filters like, who cares? Why am I even, why do they even want to read this? Where is it going to go? And then you simplify it through the writing. And then it seems like it's this, I guess, flywheel, because I know you're all about the flywheels too. It's like, it's got this momentum that carries itself through, because you kind of have that traction with the writing and connection to the reader at the same time, in real time.
And I think there's another, I'm trying to, as we're having this conversation, I'm trying to make sure we don't leave anything out, because it's always hard when you listen to somebody, and if you engage with the material and they gave you 90% of it, and you're like, oh, what was the other thing? And I think something we may have inadvertently let out, and this is just from my perspective, Andre's perspective on this may be totally different, but our writing starts, like for me, when I'm writing the first thing, I'm writing for the person whose opinion matters most to me. So that's a factor in this. So if I sit down, and just because of the nature of timing, Andre's 6 hours ahead. So often just the way timing will work is I need to have something for him to read in his morning, where he has a much longer period of time, so that we're not delayed. So I'm writing the first draft of something, even though it's a first draft and all of that, I'm still writing for the person. The first person who's going to read it is the audience, is most important to me, which that has a very important effect. It's not just like, hey, let's get our ideas on paper. It's like, well, I'm getting my ideas on paper. And we've had a conversation or whatever. We have a theme, but I'm putting my ideas on paper for my thought partner, co-conspirator, but really for the person. I'm writing for André first, and saying, here's kind of here's where I'm thinking. And we use lots of abbreviations, like one of our abbreviations is TOL, thinking out loud. So it might, there might be like some part in there, like I'm just TOL on this one. I'm not sure about this. And then he knows what that shorthand is, which is like, okay, this isn't fully refined. Or if it doesn't say TOL, then he knows like this is me bringing, this is my best. We have other parts of the collaboration that are interesting too, which is another abbreviation, which is NPO, which means no pride of ownership, where it's I've written what I can, I'm handing it to you. I know it will be better when it comes back, but anything that you see in it, anything, run with, go anywhere you want with it. And sometimes that means we pull whole stuff out. Sometimes we start over. But it's not, there's no ego, which is really weird because we have two people who care so much about the craft of writing, yet when we write together, there is a complete lack of ego. No one protects his stuff. It's weird. I don't know that I would even believe it if someone described it to me. I'd be like, yeah, it's bullshit. That's not how it actually works. Totally how it works. It's just two guys really writing for each other first. Andre's going to come on and be like, I can't stand that guy. He doesn't. I never write for that jerk. But from my perspective, that's I have an audience of one for my first draft. I'm like, can I explain my best thinking to my co-conspirator here, and what's going to happen as a result? Or if I read the second version, like same idea, like he's created something. What can I bring my absolute best to it to make it a little bit better, to contribute to make something? And what's weird is when we go back and look at emails, I have no idea who wrote what.
That's cool.
We wrote this. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
I should skip Andre's answer in case he contradicts me. Like, I can't stand that guy.
Well, we're actually doing this week. So Friday, we've decided that we're doing a newsletter. We aren't sure what's going to be in the newsletter yet. So, it's the end of Monday for me. It's Shawn's morning or afternoon now. So we've only got a few days left to come up with the idea, then write the email and get it ready for Friday, which is when we're going to hit the send button. So that's the only thing that we know right now. At the same time as we also have a third part of a lesson for a course that we busy doing live. And we've told everybody last week that they're getting this lesson on Friday as well. So we've got these two things that are going to happen together between now and Friday. Whereas the newsletter part, we've got no idea what's going to go in there yet. And the course is, well, we know what's going to go in there, but it still needs to be written. So that's what we do, is we just make life difficult for ourselves.
Well, you're creating deadlines. I think that is, because that's what Matt and I too, is like, if there's not a deadline, if we're not sprinting, like creating these little micro sprints for each other, then our best work doesn't come out. It's kind of like our podcast as well. Like we contain our time. We usually record multiple in a day. Today it's just you guys, but either way, we kind of, and we want to prepare just enough to, for ourselves and our audience, but really it's us as well. And I feel like just with enough preparation, enough, we have a deadline, we know when we're going to talk, we know when it's just good enough to get the momentum started. And it seems like the writing process is very similar. And, it's like this ping ponging of ideas. I think that's super, super powerful with partners too, is not having that ego. It's probably the hardest part on the outside when you're not doing it, but when you're collaborating with the right person, it just kind of flows. And I think it's worth drawing attention to the fact that not everybody thinks in this way. Some people do and some people don't, but it's okay, because there's no right or wrong way to do this. I mean, certain people need to plan. They love spreadsheets, they love structure, and that's okay. For them, they should plot out everything, plan everything, and then just go with it. And then what emerges as a result of that is going to be better for them. For us, we just, this is the way that works for us, where it's a bit more improv-y, but we have the ideas already. We just need to mix them in a way that's going to resonate with our audience and ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I've got one last question, then we can go ahead and wrap up. I'm curious, how much are you doing with email automation and segmentation these days? Because I'll tell a super quick story. So one of the first times I sort of got introduced to André was when we were promoting something for Brian Moran. It was like a Facebook ad course or something like that. I actually don't even remember what it was at this point. But me and my partner at the time, Bradley Will, we were number 2 on the leaderboard And number one on the leaderboard was André. And when we met with Brian Moran in person and asked him about the promotion, I think he said André sold about 3 times as much as we did, and we were in second place, right? And so when I finally met André, I was like, yeah, we were emailing to, I think, 100,000 people. How many were you emailing to? And I think I don't remember the exact number, but it was a few thousand. And when we asked you how you were doing, it was all about the segmentation. And we're like, man, this guy, he generated 3 times as many sales off of 2,000 emails, and we mailed to 100,000 people. And really the trick behind it was you were just sending it to only the people that showed some interest. How much of that are you still doing in your business? How much of is segmentation, and how much is just, here are our ideas and let's just put it out to everybody?
It's definitely part of our what we do. You know, it's really important for us that we only share with people that are that want to hear a certain thing. So although broadly speaking, our audience is into marketing, which is why they're here in the first place, that doesn't mean that they're going to be interested in every single thing that we have to say. So we always make it a point of respecting their attention. And, you know, and stuff happens, and such, you know, people lose jobs or, you know, weird things happen. And even if somebody would be interested in that moment in time, then maybe they're not. So instead of just presuming that everyone's going to always be interested and then just emailing everybody, it's important for us to do that segmentation. So I think like the quick version is we would write a single email. The more complex version is we'll write a series of emails that unpack a certain idea about something that's going to happen. And then it's always, you know, if you want to hear about this thing, you know, raise your hand by clicking the link. So it's really simple automation. There's nothing complex about it other than it being, you know, that we're intentional about asking them first, having them raise their hand. Most people say no. So, you know, their behavior is they don't click the link. Mm-hmm. But then there's a segment of people that do, and then everything else happens only to those people. And then after the fact, we'll then take all these emails and all this stuff, because it's so valuable, and we will put it on the website somewhere for people to find. So nothing's ever wasted. You know, we love recycling work that we've created. So nothing's ever done in isolation just for one moment in time. Mm. So yeah, that's the simple version. But yeah, you can get pretty complex with the automation.
I think the automation reflects the intent is what really is incredibly important. So we had a fall promotion, fall enrollment for 3 courses. And, you know, if you know, a lot of people would say like, well, just let all of your customers know, right? Everybody gets and we go through it. But instead of doing that, and this is a reasonably typical example, but we'll often do, like we did a Friday email and said, hey, this thing's going to happen next week. We're going to talk about this idea we have called the durable business, you know, what makes a business long lasting. And we sort of defined it. And so we're going to do a 5-part series next week. There is nothing to buy in that 5-part series. It's all value. You know, you can ignore it. We're sort of telling them what's coming, but it's all value. And by the way, at the end of that series, we're going to then do another 5 parts. And those 5 parts are going to connect the dots with the courses that we offer, which are going to be open for enrollment in these particular days. If you do nothing, you won't get the extra 5 emails. You won't know anything about the enrollment. You don't have to, like, we're going to give value, and only if you raise your hand are we going to cross that threshold into to connecting the value to our courses. So in week 1, if you read all 5 of those emails, there is no reference to our courses. You can't buy anything. It's just a complete series on 5 elements of a durable business, sort of defining what it is and how those parts work together and why that's important. You could print it out and be better off with that. But if you want to know more, if you want to go deeper about how we specifically think about those components, that's going to be timed with when we're going to be actually talking about our courses and we're going to be opening enrollment. So you have to raise your hand, and sometimes we make it really hard, but it's not a like, hey, don't do anything and you'll get those emails. It's like, no. You have to do things. You have to raise your hand. And once in a while, people will reach out and say, I totally, you know, I didn't get to your emails fast enough and I missed that promotion. You know, can I get them now? Can you send me those? No, fine. But it's counterintuitive, because if you look at the numbers of your entire list and think, okay, I'm going to cut this down by 90%, like, and only send promotional stuff to 10% at a time, that can't work. And what ends up happening is you're respecting the attention of everybody so often that 10% or 15, whatever it is, who raise their hand are so much more engaged because they've said, yeah, this is right for me right now. It's so counterintuitive and so impactful. And I don't see anybody else doing it. So
no, really, it's true. And then that's what I was going to say is, like, everyone's got the megaphone right now and has had for a long time, just yelling at everyone. And that's where we've been kind of slapped around by a couple email folks on this show too, prior to you guys coming over, like, oh yeah, segmentation. That's pretty, like, number one thing, it's speak to the right person at the right time.
Well, to think about like what's being said, it's like, okay, yelling loudly isn't working well anymore. So let's yell louder.
Right.
Like, wait a second. Like, when you say it out loud, you're like, well, wait a minute, that almost doesn't make sense. So it's like, okay, well, everybody's yelling loudly now. Yeah. So if you want to stand out, if you're in a room and 10 people are yelling, how do you stand out? You're the person in the corner who's being quiet. Yeah. Automatically, people see what's different in situations. We're pattern recognizing creatures, and if everybody is yelling for our attention, eventually that's overwhelming. But what you will notice is the one person who's not yelling. Yeah. So now what'll happen is everybody will start doing a great job at this, and we'll have to be the guys yelling. That's it.
So you're saying that adding more emojis to the subject line isn't the answer?
Well, I think it is. I just think it might be the wrong question, but it is certainly the right answer.
Wrong kind of contrast we're looking for here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you have to get the right emojis, I guess, is really the question. I'm just trying to imagine a situation where we send it. Actually, André uses emojis, so maybe I don't even know. Maybe we send emojis and emails. I don't know. Two things I've never done in my entire life. I've never used an emoji, and I've never taken a selfie. So the emoji thing, I just laugh at all the time when I hear it.
That's actually pretty impressive.
That is very impressive.
Yeah, at this point, it's like a badge of honor. I'm like, I will never use an emoji.
You can't.
Occasionally, I accidentally click the thing, and I'm nervous. I'm like, oh God, and no, I didn't do it.
Don't hit send, and it's official. It's in the universe. Yeah,
that's right. It's out there.
Yeah, I've been tempted to add an emoji to some of the emails that Shawn writes, because I then publish it.
Emoji by proxy. Maybe. Perfect.
Yeah.
Ruin your reputation.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, let's wrap it up. We already went over time, and I apologize for that. And André, thanks for being on here and doing the video thing too, because I know it's not your jam. So big props.
You're welcome. And it looks like I've got all this like weird lighting that's happening now because it's dark outside.
It actually looks really cool.
I've been nerding out on the lighting the whole time because I just set up all these LED lights that are like timed up in my house. I'm like, I think his is changing to the time. Maybe not. I don't know. I could be.
It's just a reflection of his lava lamp that you can't see.
Oh, how cool.
His beanbag chair and his lava lamp chair.
He's bringing it back. Well, how do folks dive in? Obviously, you send so much gold out there, and they can kind of go back in the archives and all that. But how can folks start this adventure with you guys?
Yeah, everything we do is published to tinylittle.businesses.com. That's the plural version. And at the moment, all the courses are closed, so there's nothing to buy. But there's tons of stuff to read.
That's perfect.
There's somewhere, I don't know, it's probably a couple 100,000 words of free content on there. So just go poke around. If you're interested in traffic, there's stuff on traffic. If you're interested in lead gen, there's stuff on lead gen, stuff about conversion, writing great emails. But just go play in the sandbox for a little while we figure out how to sell some stuff later.
It's a freeing feeling though, knowing like, hey, there's so much stuff out there, and there's nothing for sale at the end of this, and only if you choose to be. Maybe sometime. So yeah, definitely. We'll link everything up.
The right people will come. Yeah. The right people will come back, and we'll find that whenever weeks, months, years from now, that thing that they heard, they're ready for it. We're not going anywhere. So when the customer's ready, we're going to be here doing our thing. Nice. As crazy as it looks.
I love it. That's how it's done. All right, guys. Appreciate your time. It has been an honor.
Welcome,
and we definitely, yeah. Thank you.